DX9, a company that I'm always behind. They gave me probably one of the greatest Rodimus Prime toys ever created in Carry. Uh, they revealed something recently that's come completely out of left field, and the funny thing is that this isn't even a design or a concept that's relatively new. Like the second it was shown to me, a lot of people were showing me this, and what we're referring to is, of course, DX9 K2 AncestRod, which is this Beast Wars kind of animal take on Rodimus Prime. The second I saw this, I right away was like, oh, they're making a toy of this, and a lot of people were confused by my statement because a lot of people thought, oh, they're just merging Zoids with with G1 or something. But what
Right.
this really is back in 2015, there was a fanzine fan art book um, called T Beast, and I know that Azusa at BotCon 2015, and I want to say Tony Presto also had these books for sale, and they were like $5 each, and it was a very simple art book that was like soft cover with maybe I think about maybe 28 pages of color pages on the inside, and essentially T Beast was just this simple art book that had all these artistic interpretations of Beast Wars characters, but using G1, well, Beast Wars style characters, but using G1 characters. And a majority of the book was G1 characters if they were beasts, done in a more transmetally kind of style, less organic,
Hmm.
with spackles here and there of here's a new attempt at an Optimus Primal, here's Moon, here's Ironhide, but done more in his Beast Wars Ironhide, less in his G1 Ironhide. But a majority of the book otherwise was G1 characters, like I said. So it had this, we call it now AncestRod, but it had this exact 100% to a T Rodimus or Hot Rod, you know, tiger, if you will, that looks like
Right.
Liger Zero from Zoids. But in this book also, it had a Jazz that turned into like a horse. It had which I don't know. People in the chat and in the comments will have to explain that one to me why that makes sense. It had a side swipe that turned into a bull, and that one kind of makes sense because of the Lamborghini logo. And just, it had a wolf from Wheeljack. It had some kind of bird for Power Glide. The whole book just has tons of this Soundwave turned into an owl. It's a very fascinating book, but what's fascinating to me was books like this existed all the time in Japan, people's artistic interpretations of transformations and stuff. It's one of the first times ever that I've seen something like this extensively done, and then 2 years later, third party decides to make exclusives out of it, or
Yeah.
figures in this case, and not to mention like inspired by like 100% one for one those designs. So it's really interesting that they're doing this, and assuming that this is the first of an entire line based off of this book. I mean, I'll post some images from this book and stuff, and anyone who's been following me on Twitter, I kind of posted a few of these images already. But this book will be kind of a guide of what you might be able to expect in the future. I'm happy about this in the sense, not even from a hot rod perspective, but I'm happy about this because the departure from all those same G1 characters and going more towards something that's unique looking.
Yeah, exactly.
I've and part of me feels, and this is again, like I always say, third party is always that crystal ball into the future of official retail product. We've discussed this in the past, what we thought the next, classics-esque kind of series will be in the future or generations. And we said, oh, it's probably going to go in that Beast Wars kind of route.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if the third party guys already got wind on the inside that that's going to be the next direction, and them going, well, we need to do some beast designs, and probably went looking and found this stuff and
Yeah, what's
said,
the easiest beast kind of design we could do without having to like
not to
really
mention
go?
doing beast designs, but at the same time still appeasing those G1 collectors,
Yeah.
which, up to this point is, at the end of the day, these are Beast designs, but they're not really Beast Wars designs.
Yeah,
These
exactly.
still, at the end of the day, are Beast designs, but of G1 characters. But at least it's something that I say to myself always, well, good thing again, at least, it's different. It's not the
Mhm.
same combiner teams over and over for the 50th time. What this does might tell us, though, is what we might be expecting from Hasbro and Takara in the future, which will be Beast Wars designs.
Mhm.
I would not be surprised if Hasbro and Takara are going to do Beast Wars for the future, but we're going to get Beast interpretations of those trademarked names. So
Right.
we're going to get a Jazz Beast Wars or a Blue Streak Beast Wars. I know there was an image a while back. I have it somewhere on my hard drive that someone did. They took the Beast Wars like catalog with all the characters from the first two waves, and they said they did like, well, what if Beast Wars came out today? What the names of those characters would be today?
Mhm.
And it was hilarious because I have to find that image because it's what was so great about it was like I remember it was Megatron was Megatron, obviously, like the Croc Megatron. Optimus
Right.
Prime was Optimus Prime, but like Rat Trap was called Mirage. Um, uh, Obviously, Dinobot was called Grimlock.
Mhm.
Uh, Pterosaur was called Starscream.
Mhm.
Tigatron was called Jazz. Uh, I think I'm trying to remember. Um, Wolfang was called Hound. Black Arachnia was called Crosswise. A lot of weird ones. Obviously, Scorponok was called Scorponok. Polar Koala was called Red Alert. Uh, and then when they did the Gorilla Optimus Prime and the T-Rex Megatron, they're like, well, that's going to be Ultra Magnus and Galvatron.
Oh
Like, like
wow.
just, but just,
Yeah, I could see that with the dinosaur Megatron
but
because he's
that
purple.
but that's what I'm trying to say. Like
Yeah, that kind.
it's and going to
Jeez.
Cheetor, he'd be called Prowl, obviously. Like
Mhm.
it's just them going like, well, if Beast Wars came out today and the way that the name conventions and trademarking works today, they would have just thrown all those pre-existing names onto
Mhm.
all of those characters. And this image just keeps going. Like there's Razor Claw,
That's
Bumblebee's
really
throat.
good.
It's a funny image online, but it really shows. And to me, it really says to me that's probably what might happen, because if
Yeah.
they're going to do a Beast Wars gimmick for like another 2 years, they're not going to totally ignore all their other trademarks of like, well, they're not, well, since we're doing Beast Wars, we're going to pull up all these old Beast Wars trademarks and
Mhm.
use those, like oh my god, like just going to like Iguanus and
Oh
go
yeah,
and
yeah.
Tigatron and Rhinox and Pterosaur, all these names that have been pretty much dormant for quite a few years,
Mhm.
and Wolfang and God Insecticon, although that's been used in other areas, but back and even Black Arachnia, like when was the last time we had Black Arachnia applied to a name of anything outside of a Creo toy,
Mhm.
and ignoring the Japanese side of things.
Right.
So it's just, and that's the only reason why the Creo toy even exists, because they're just like, well, we got to throw the name on something, keep it fresh. But the point is that I think that through Ancestrod, and again, this
Mhm.
might be me stretching, but I think through Ancestrod, and this is just based on the way that these dominoes keep falling, Ancestrod is showing us that I think Hasbro is probably gearing up for a Beast something in the future, and possibly a Beast something that might be 50% actual Beast Wars characters, 50% Beast characters based off of G1 characters.
Right.
And so this should prove very interesting in the future. Again, going back to the actual discussion here of Ancestrod, I think he looks
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
It's funny, there were certain people asking me like, what do you think of him being a cat? Like, what would you have chosen? I know there was one guy on Twitter. Let me just pull up his name just to give him a proper shout out. There was one guy on Twitter that was like, oh, I always envisioned Hot Rod being something. Oh, here we go. Angry Viking. He said, I envisioned maybe more of a Beast Hot Rod being something more of a Phoenix because of like the flame
Mm.
on his chest.
Right. Right.
And I was like, yeah, I could see that. Me personally, I don't know. Like, Hot Rod's a car that's associated with like speed, but ground speed, and I've always felt that because Hot Rod's designation is Cavalier, which is like he's an Autobot Cavalier. That's his designation. You know, like everyone has a certain designation in G1 in terms of like blasters communications.
Right.
So a Cavalier is a knight, pretty much. And when you associate knights, you associate them with horses.
Yeah.
And I could almost imagine, just like how Jazz is this horse here, but I could almost see Hot Rod being like a flaming horse kind of thing.
Okay.
Like maybe like Ponyta or Rapidash from Pokemon, but something along those lines. Like just a really badass looking flaming fire horse, and again, the flames of the mane when he transforms becomes the traditional rear spoiler. Like you could still transition that, where
Right,
his mane could split in half, and it makes that traditional upward spoiler that he has in his alt mode, which gives him
on his back,
that gives him that defining Hot Rod look. So I could see that being more proper for Hot Rod because he's something that's associated with speed, and because he's a car, so horses are kind of the horsepower, if you will,
Right.
and then make him like and because the Cavalier thing, because he's a knight. So like it works for Hot Rod with that. That's how I would. I mean the tiger slash kind of idea here.
Leopard, panther.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that personally for him, and I don't really see the connection too much. Again, if I'm missing something, someone please leave it in the comments.
Cheetah. Well, maybe it could be a cheetah too, but
well,
I don't think he's all that sleek.
Yeah, cheetahs are a little more skinny. Like, I mean, like that was the thing when Cheetor made his debut in Beast Wars. A lot of people made those connections to him and Hot Rod because they're just like, oh, he's the young guy that wants to be leader and he's fast and da da da.
I never saw him as wanting to be leader.
Yeah, he always was. I always felt there was that natural progression of him wanting to be like Big Bot. You know what I mean? Like he always looked and admired, his leader, and that was kind of the same thing that was always associated with Rodimus with Season 3. It wasn't so much obvious in the movie itself, but with Season 3, Rodimus always wanting to be like Prime. So, I mean, it's that, and again, Cheetor in the end kind of becoming leader ultimately in the end with Beast Machines.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just, I really dig this. I think it's really cool, but at the same time, I think that it's probably a big sign of something in the future to come from Hasbro. So and I'll say this right now, all of these designs that you'll probably be buying from DX9, Hasbro won't be doing. This is something this is something that's clearly based off of a fan art book and totally pulling from that. But
Who owns Zoids? That's Bandai, right?
Zoids is the funny thing with Zoids is Zoids was Hasbro. Hasbro.
I mean, in Japan specifically.
Oh, in Japan, that's a good question. Actually, hold on. Tommy. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Which is Takara. Which is so there you go.
So
I mean, yeah, and the funny thing is, Zoids right now in Japan is kind of in a quiet period. So I mean, you never know. But I mean,
there's something I wanted to bring up about the T-Beast. I guess Doshinjin was that
the book.
Like I'm looking at all,
Well, just for people that don't understand what Wendell said, Doshijin is Japanese for like fan art book.
Yeah.
Okay, just so they're like, oh, what did he just say?
Oh, so like this fan-made comic book, they have like Daniel posted up, Proto Man posted up the image of all the characters. That's like the wraparound for the book, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we have an elephant, a really like hardcore-looking elephant with like Gundam wings going on here, and like the flares on the shoulder pads, and it really, really looks like we were talking about it before, and Proto Man basically said it's Ironhide, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much them doing a double homage, going like, well, it's red because it's Ironhide, but also because Beast Wars Ironhide was an elephant. So they're kind of like just fusing those two characters together.
And then the one I want to bring up more so, the hippo in the room, is Ultra Magnus is the hippo.
That one, yeah, that one too I don't understand. Again, if someone could explain that to me, like to me, see, like
I think they just needed another big mammal, to be the leader. And also, hippos kill more people in the continent of Africa than any other animal.
You know what? Let's put it this way: if Optimus Prime was an elephant, like Big Convoy was a mammoth in a way, then I
Yeah.
could see Ultra Magnus being a hippo.
Like, what would be the next big
Yeah, the next
mammal
big
that could
mammal.
go
Yeah, I
toe to
guess
toe
you're
with an elephant?
that
That's the
that
only way I
would
could
work.
see it.
That would work, I guess.
And
Yeah.
I would want to see how this toy works because that's weird and different, and just like it'd be like the best like talking piece of your collection kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool, that's an Ultra Magnus. Oh,
Beast Wars
check
never did a
this out.
hippo. That is true.
Yeah, it's like, check this out, and you transform it, and it's a hippo, and you're like, wait, what? And you're like, have I got a story for you?
Yeah. It's you know what, and it's the same thing where a lot of times we try to associate G1 characters with what they would have. Like I remember years ago, there was this fan that he used to be on the Beast Wars Mush back in the day, and he was called Soundwave, and his alt mode was a kangaroo, and I was like, ah, that's kind of clever, you know, because his tapes are all the little joeys inside the pouch.
Okay.
And I was like,
Okay.
okay, that that's because you have, and so it's the same thing. Ultra Magnus is a car carrier, so it's
Hmm.
like, what is he, a koala? You know, that has like his
Meh.
babies on. Like you're trying to make those connections where with the alt mode, because in the same way that 100% any Beast Wars Starscream has to be a flyer. You know what I mean? It's like a given. So it's the same way. You look at the alt mode of Starscream and the Seeker Jets, and you go, well, they got to be birds of some kind.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
you have to look at some of those ground-based vehicles and stuff like that, like an Ironhide that's like known about being tough and stuff. You're not going to give them a pelican. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
You're not going to give them a bug of some kind or something. It has to be something that's rough and tumble like that, and that's how we end up on an elephant, or maybe even a rhinoceros would have been even more
Yeah,
appropriate.
true.
A rhino, or to a smaller extent, an armadillo. You know,
Well, yeah. Go with the
actually, you know
name,
what?
Ironhide.
An armadillo would be perfect for Brawn.
Mm,
Brawn
it's
would.
small, but
It's
it's really
small, but it's
tough
tough as hell.
until it gets shot in the arm.
Yeah, until a shot in the arm blew up his innards. But yeah, no, it's just there's certain ones that and we had an armadillo transformer, but it's just like there's certain ones that like it's a really unique idea that really has the juices flowing in the brain, and I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, there already is, like I said, more than over a dozen designs already locked in. So
Hmm.
if you're curious at what might come after this AncestRod, I'll post up after I post the episode on Twitter. I'll post the full res image of this as best as I could find it online on my Twitter so people could see it. Because obviously I'll post it in the image of the episode of the video here, but at the same time I'll also try to post a high res one so people could take a look and see what will probably be coming, given that this DX9 one will be successful.